Last weekend at Nashville seemed to never end.
And we've got a caution down the back straightaway. And up the racetrack, he catches the one. Chastain into the wall. Big bottle up behind him. Big wreck for the 8.
Countless crashes, countless overtimes, even a little bit of road rage.
Decides to wreck me under caution. He can just kiss my ass.
But in the end, it was a sweet sound of country music that was singing for Joey Logano.
It's going to be time for Joey Logano. Hands on and wins.
Let's freaking go! We did it! Yeah! Yeah!
The 11th different winner flips the playoff standings once again, with the stakes getting higher as we continue the trip across the nation towards the NASCAR playoffs. However, they face an unpredictable challenge. Last year, Mother Nature decided to make the stars of NASCAR's lives more wild in the streets of Chicago, while the Kiwi King from Down Under spoiled the show.
Shane Van Gisbergen, the New Zealand driver, wins on the streets of Chicago.
Today, we're back for take 2. Can Gisbergen have an encore performance? Will the frontrunners continue their domination? Or can someone else steal the spotlight in the Windy City? A beautiful backdrop for this 4th of July weekend is the perfect place to see a lot of being and banging here in the streets of Chicago. But remember, this is a street course, so do be careful and don't get caught up in rush hour traffic trying to fight your way into the playoffs, or else you'll get stuck in the back of the pack. So pull up a chair and get comfy. NASCAR is back in Chicago. You are looking high above the home of the second city of America. Welcome to Chicago, where hopefully, like The Godfather Part 2, the sequel is better than the original. Last year was a torrential downpour, but this year, nothing but sunny skies over Grant Park, the site of the second ever NASCAR Cup Series street course. Welcome to the Grant Park 165 in the streets of downtown Chicago in Illinois. And like I mentioned earlier, absolutely beautiful weather here this 4th of July weekend. Look at this, high above the racetrack, temperature in the mid 80s under mostly sunny skies, 21% chance of rain, 52% humidity with a 7-mile-an-hour wind heading southwest through the city of Chicago. Welcome everyone back to episode of MDK RaceDay. My name is Jett. Hope you're having a wonderful start to the month of July. Yes, that is right. Finally, we are back in the city of Chicago, this time under much better conditions as we get ready for the second ever NASCAR street race here through the streets of Chicago. As always, if you haven't already, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on who do you think will win today's race. Let's not waste any time, but head into it with our news and notes. The first story we're going to talk about revolves around Carson Hocevar. Now, he has been a driver that's been making big waves so far in 2024. I can easily say that he is probably the best driver of the Spire Motorsports camp so far this year, which I don't think anyone had in their bingo card. But last weekend at Nashville, he did revert back to his old ways. After a crash involving Brad Keselowski in turns 1 and 2 under caution, Carson Hocevar wrecked Harrison Burton under yellow. Now, as a result of this, NASCAR has handed out penalties for Hocevar's actions. They have fined him $50,000 and have docked him 25 driver points for the incident. Now, other drivers have voiced their complaints about Hocevar. Ryan Blaney mentioned how this kid has done this multiple times throughout his time in NASCAR. So yeah, this is not a good trait to have, at least when you take a look at Hocevar's history. I mean, last year he did it to another driver, I believe, under yellow, I think at IRP, where he right hooked the driver in the front straightaway. And of course, infamously, what happened in last year's truck championship where he dumped Corey Heim. So multiple instances of Hocevar just racing over aggressively or just flat out just using anger, using emotions over using his head. Personally, though, I don't think that this is enough, considering the fact that this is at this time the 3rd time he has done something like this where he has just wrecked a driver blatantly. And I don't think that a 25 driver point deduction is enough. I mean, the $50,000 fine, maybe, yes, considering he's not making money the likes of Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and those types of drivers. But I don't know if I agree with how lenient the penalty is. Granted, the reason why it's not harsh like a suspension for what happened to Bubba Wallace or Chase Elliott is because it happened under yellow. It happened under a caution situation. But then again, you could counter that argument by saying what happened with Austin Hill and Johnny Sauter when they went after, I think it was at Iowa, and I think Johnny Sauter got suspended, I think, for wrecking Austin Hill. I think that's how it went. So Again, interesting by NASCAR's reasoning to give this type of penalty to Carson Hocevar. And next up, if you notice what happened last weekend at Nashville, if you were following the number 9 crew of Chase Elliott's team, you may have noticed a sponsor that had been absent from the 9 team, and that was Hooters, that had been on the team since 2017. Many people were speculating as to why Hooters was left. It was not part of Chase Elliott's car or majority of the team's haulers, any of that stuff. That Hooters logo was gone. Well, a couple of days after that race, it was announced that Hendrick Motorsports and Hooters have ended their relationship due to Hooters not living up to their obligations, more than likely their financial obligations, not paying Hendrick Motorsports, thus giving Hendrick the right to terminate the deal. Now, this is interesting because it coincides with Hooters going down in revenue, going down in stores. They just closed around 44 stores nationwide a little bit ago. So, and this has been a trend that's been like this for a long time. This is not something that has just come out of nowhere. If you look through the history of Hooters, especially in recent years, they have been closing down a lot of restaurants over the time. So to see this coincide with Hooters downsizing in stores is not surprising to see, but it is interesting to see something like this happen with a big team like Hendrick Motorsports. I mean, we have seen other sponsorships and other teams not pay the team, or you think of the Rich Energy Haas F1 team where they weren't making their financial obligations, but very rare to see it with a team like Hendrick Motorsports and a big brand like Hooters having this situation. Now let's take a look at the point standings and the playoff grid heading into Chicago with just 7 races to go in the regular season. The NASCAR top 10 looks as such mainly the same. First through third remains the same, with Larson now having a 20-point gap ahead of Chase Elliott. Denny Hamlin minus 43. Reddick gains a spot with his second place run up to 4th. Truex falls to 5th. 6th, 7th, 8th remains the same of Bell, Byron, and Blaney, with Keselowski and Gibbs all moving up 1 position. Chastain, with his crash, he falls out of the top 10. As we take a look at the playoff grid though, well, we know with Logano's win, he is now the 9th seed here in the playoffs, but most importantly, he is locked into the championship, or at least to the playoffs. Martin Truex Jr. still has about a 2-race gap, plus 143, Gibbs plus 70, and Chastain plus 66. But because of Logano's win, that moves up the cut line. Buescher now plus 56, and Bowman now holds the final transfer spot at plus 51 ahead of Bubba Wallace. That is nearly a full race that Bowman has on Wallace. Briscoe minus 78, Kyle Busch minus 104, with Josh Berry minus 131. Busch, the official beer of NASCAR and proud sponsor of the Busch Light Polar Award given to the fastest driver at each NASCAR Cup Series event, Busch Light congratulates Kyle Larson for the 5th time this year, a record so far this season. 5 times Larson has been on the pole, his first pole at Chicago and the 21st pole of his career, winning it with a speed of 90.168 miles per hour. Since 2020, Busch Beer has invested more than $70 million in becoming one of the NASCAR Cup Series premier sponsors. Now, Saturday during qualifying had a lot of interesting storylines take place. Larson, like I said, wins the pole. Ty Gibbs, strong road course runner, alongside him on the outside front row. Look at road 2, Michael McDowell, the Indy GP winner, and Tyler Reddick, who has won on the road courses. He won at Road America, the Indy GP, and Circuit of the Americas. Road 3, the defending race winner, Shane Van Gisbergen, in 5th place. And how about Bubba Wallace? You should not see him in the first page of a road course, but here he is in 6th place. Excellent run for the 23 team. Row 4 has Christopher Bell, who led the most laps here last year, and Alex Bowman in the 48 car. With Daniel Suarez, who won his first career Cup Series win at Sonoma 2 years ago, and Brad Keselowski in the 10th position. However, due to him being involved in a crash where he spun in the final round of qualifying, he will go to the rear in a backup car. The second page involves Denny Hamlin and John Hunter Nemechek in row 6, Ricky Carson Hocevar and Ross Chastain in row 7. Row 8 has Austin Dillon and Chris Buescher. Row 9 has Ryan Blaney, who had issues. He will go to the rear of the field alongside Chase Elliott. And running out the top 20 is Kyle Busch and Corey LaJoie, who also crashed during qualifying. He will go to the rear as well. Row 11 has Austin Cindric and fellow Ford Chase Briscoe. Row 12 has Justin Haley and Martin Truex Jr. starting 24th, unusual starting position for Truex Jr., who usually runs really good on road courses, even though this is a street course. Still surprising to see him this far low in the starting lineup. Eric Jones to the rear of the field after his crash during qualifying. Again, a lot of drivers crashed during the practice qualifying sessions alongside Tyler Gillen. William Byron had a steering issue with a tolling problem, so he will go to the rear due to mechanical changes. Alongside him is Noah Gregson, with Ryan Preece and Zane Smith rounding out the top 30. Harrison Smith crashed again during qualifying. Joey Logano starting in 32nd. Again, unusual position to see him so far back. Last week's winner, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Austin Hill in row 17. Row 18, Daniel Hemrick and Josh Berry, who also crashed during qualifying. AJ Allmendinger, 37th. Joey Hand driving the Stage 60 car in 38th place. Josh Bilicki, who failed pre-qualifying inspection multiple times, he was not able to qualify at all in this race, so he is relegated to 39th, as well as Kaz Gralla, who starts in the 40th position. Here is a look at the opening odds for the Grant Park 165. No surprise to see Shane Van Gisbergen, the defending winner, plus 550, as well as Kyle Larson, plus 550, and Christopher Bell. Tyler Reddick at 600, Elliott at 850, and Truex Jr. at plus 1100, with Byron and Allmendinger at 1200 apiece, McDowell at 1400, and Buescher at 1600. Then to the long shots. Again, this is opening odds, but still to see Ty Gibbs this far back at plus 1800. This could be a steal if anyone is considering betting. Ross Chastain and teammate Daniel Suarez at plus 2800. Kyle Busch at 3000. Blaney and Hamlin at 3500. Logano at 4500. Cindric at 5000. Bowman at 7000. And Joey Hand at plus 8000. So what can we expect on the streets of Chicago? Well, it's going to be a lot drier than last year. Last year, like I said, we had that torrential downpour of rain. No rain is expected to take place here this year. That is going to be awesome to see. But it will change, of course, how the race is run. Obviously, with it being on a wet track like last year, lots of strategy, lots of drivers going off track. This year, I don't think you're going to see drivers going off track, or what we see in turn 6 going head on into the tire barriers. But we could see drivers pushing envelope. We saw a lot of cars, like I said, during the practice and qualifying sessions, a lot of drivers just lose it in turns 3 and 4, that quick little short shoe before we get onto that long straightaway heading into turn number 6. Lots of drivers just lost it, got sideways, just hit the back end with the wall a little bit. Also, another potential danger spot is turn 11, just as you get onto the East Jackson Drive there. We also saw a lot of drivers just drive it in too hard, lose the car, and back it into the wall. So those spots can be very entertaining in terms of drivers potentially losing it, or you try maybe outbreak your opponent, get to the inside and make a move there. So those spots are going to be interesting there. Who knows? Maybe you may see another traffic jam on East Jackson Drive like what we saw last year. As for the drivers, well, based on what we saw this weekend, Larson and Gisbergen may be the class of the field. What they did so far this weekend has been impressive, just unbelievably impressive. They were just overlapping each other. Just, okay, Gisbergen has the fastest lap. No, Larson has the fastest lap. Shane, Larson, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the Xfinity race yesterday, I mean, those two drivers, even though Larson had issues due to pit strategy, he was stuck in the back, Gisbergen was able to prevail and win the race, was able to move up forward. The way those two were driving were so fun to watch. Very clean, but hard, aggressive racing. But I have a feeling, could Shane just be maybe toying with the drivers? He wasn't as dominant this year in qualifying as many people saw him maybe last year. Last year, a lot of people had their eyes on Shane as like, oh, watch out for him. This year is the same model, but could he be toying with the drivers a little bit? Because we saw more of Larson, more of Gibbs, more of other NASCAR regular drivers show up and make some good laps during practice and qualifying. Could Shane maybe be toying with the drivers and leave the good stuff for when we go to race time? We'll just have to wait and see about that. But that's something that should be very interesting to point out, as Shane may be toying with the drivers a little bit. I mentioned Ty Gibbs and Kyle Larson. Those drivers are going to be on the money, at the very least, to try and put up a fight against SVG, because I feel like SVG is going to be the one that everybody has their eyes on. You look at some of the road course ringers like AJ Allmendinger, who, I mean, I feel bad. He's kind of like, AJ Allmendinger at this moment is like, if your family, you've been the single child, only child for the longest time, all of a sudden, your family decides, hey, we're going to have a baby, and then you get pushed off to the side. That's how I think Allmendinger feels at Kaulig Racing, because ever since SVG came on the scene, he's starting deep in the back of the pack alongside with Joey Hand, another road course ringer. I mean, listen, Kaulig may not be at the level that they were last year, even a couple years ago, but still, this is a street course / road course, and SVG has shown that you can run up front in these types of cars, in a quality car. So it'll be interesting to see if Allmendinger can make some moves and kind of redeem himself after a poor qualifying effort yesterday, and also not so good race result in the Xfinity race on Saturday. The Toyota drivers are going to be fast. We saw in Group B 4 of the top 5 drivers be Toyotas, and I'm even potentially even throwing in Bubba Wallace as a sleeper, and that's only if he doesn't hit the wall. If he doesn't throw away the win or make a mistake, he could be a dark horse, not to win, but have at least a good finish. He's fighting Alex Bowman and Chris Buescher. Buescher is in mid-pack. Bowman, he's in the top 10 with Bubba. So Bubba is the highest of those bubble drivers there. Bubba's starting 6th. So he has starting a good starting position. Can he continue that momentum and just have a clean race and not get into any trouble? That is something that you're going to have to watch out for, is that bubble spot. Drivers like Bowman and Bubba, they're starting up front, but Buescher, Busch, and Briscoe, they're starting mid-pack. Barry, he's starting deep in the field due to his crash during practice and qualifying. So those drivers are going to have a lot on their plate, while Bowman and Bubba gonna have a cleaner start to the race. You gotta look at some of the other Toyota drivers like Christopher Bell, who swept the stages last year, led the most laps. Tyler Reddick, like I mentioned earlier, also really good on the road courses as drivers that can show some good sprints and maybe be up there in the top 10 for majority of the race. You also look at not only Larson, maybe you even have to look at his teammate William Byron. Even though he's starting back in the pack, he did win on the road course at COTA. And the 24 team, they have been off these past few weeks. It seems as though that this is the same story as it was the first couple years last year, where they start off strong, but by the time they get to the middle portion of the season, they fall off. Well, now you're starting back of the pack due to, having your mechanical changes with the toe link. I don't know. If you're the 24 team, you're going to have to figure something out, because even though it is a street course, it's all about momentum. Heading into the playoffs with 7 races to go, you need to collect as many points as you get. Yeah, they got 3 wins, but that's really it. They've only got 3 wins to their credit. Outside of that, they only have 1 other stage win. So 3 wins, 15 playoff points for the wins, but only 1 playoff point for a stage. That tells me that this 24 team is inconsistent, especially as we got into the middle portion of the season. How will they overcome being in the back of the pack? That's something will be interesting to watch. But let's take a look now at my Fantasy Live lineup. I got Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, Shane Van Gisbergen, of course, Michael McDowell, because he is starting up front, he is really good on the road courses, won the Indy GP last year, Christopher Bell, and I got Daniel Suarez in my garage because Suarez, he's won on the road course at Sonoma for his first Cup Series win. He hasn't been not too bad during the practice of qualifying. He has been really solid so far this weekend. So having him in my garage, I think could be a nice little sleeper pick. But for my pick to win, I have been stuck between 2 drivers, but I have a feeling Shane Van Gisbergen is gonna go back to back. Yes, the 5-lap averages, I see it. He is way deep in the pack, but it's all about the footwork. Chicago, if you're racing on a street course, it's all about the footwork. SVG has some of the smoothest feet, of all of NASCAR when it comes to footwork on the road courses, or especially on the street course. So because of that, I have a feeling, even though it will be a lot tougher, because I feel like the drivers have stepped up their game a little bit, even though I think it'll be a lot tougher, I have Shane Van Gisbergen going back-to-back, winning on the streets of Chicago for the 2nd time in a row. But that's it for this episode of MDK Racing. Let me know once again who you think is going to win the comment section down below. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the 2024 Grant Park 165 from Chicago. And we will see you later tonight for an episode of MDK RaceDay. Racing Victory Stop, recapping all the events in downtown Chicago. Until next time, my name is Jett. Thanks for watching.